Welcome back to Molby On The Spot, your weekly chance, thanks to Anfield Index Pro, to hear the wit and wisdom of the man beside me here, Mr. Jan Molby, a Liverpool legend, if ever there was one. Good evening, Jan.
Good evening, Trevor. I hope you're well.
I am, my friend. Yeah, there's lots and lots I wanted to talk to you about. And I suppose the very first thing we could maybe mention is the Hillsborough Law, which has got a lot of headlines and there's a lot of positive noises being made around it. It's decades in the making, something like this. Of course, it's not a fait accompli yet. It has to go through all the processes to become what it's going to become. But if you allow me, I just wouldn't mind sharing the screen so people can see what it is that we're talking about here. I just decided to open the gov.co.uk site here. So this is as official as it can be coming from the government itself. It says Hillsborough Law to ensure the truth never concealed by the state again. You see, I think that this is the thing, and this is the only reason I wanted to bring it up to you. It's just the essence of this is so, it really hits you between the eyes, Jan, you know. It says here, landmark legislation, a legacy for the 97 loss at Hillsborough, a tribute to the families who have fought for change. And we go on and they line out what the real thing is. And there's a lot of talk about this thing here, the legal duty of candour, which is placed on public officials and authorities to prevent cover-ups. Then the bereaved families will have publicly funded legal representation. And again, just back down to the bullet points, this legal duty of candour, meaning public officials must act with honesty and integrity at all times, with criminal sanctions and for any egregious breaches. And then there's going to be this expansion of legal aid, the largest one in a decade for bereaved families, providing non-means tested help and support for inquests. And then a new offence to be introduced for misleading the public. So by way of just setting it up, I just want to read down through that, because basically what we're being told there, Jan, is that this new law is to prevent the government from lying to people. It's remarkable, isn't it, that such a thing has to be put into writing. It's a great step forward that it is happening, but I find it kind of simultaneously depressing in a weird way as well. I understand the celebrations about it. It'll be even more celebrated when and if it passes properly through into legislation. But for now, yes, absolutely, thank God there's some progress for those families who've campaigned so hard for something. But isn't it quite dark what it admits to in its wording?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I mean, transparency and accountability is basically what this is all about, isn't it? The government have finally realised that you can't just cover these things up, and there is more things. And we had the sub postmasters with the post office, didn't we? And when we had the big fire in London, where loads of people sadly passed away as well, and we were never told quite the truth. So yeah, it's basically just a case of, listen, we've had enough. Tell us the truth. So yeah, this is what this will be all about. But yeah, it's been a long rocky road to get to here. But it's fair to say it's another victory, isn't it? I don't know whether it will feel like that for the families, but it certainly will feel like that for people moving forward.
I've seen so many of the representatives of the various families and the organizations representing the families coming forward and saying a few things. And of course, you want to be positive about stuff like this, but it has been such a long old struggle, Jan. Your heart goes out to anyone who's still involved. To say that it was a sort of a thankless task for so many years is an understatement. I mean, the bravery that those people had to just keep sticking their chins out when they kept getting knocked down and told to shut up and go away. I suppose that is the victory, isn't it? To see something enacted into law on the back of their efforts, when clearly, even from the wording of this thing itself, everything was kind of stacked against them achieving this.
Yeah, no, I mean, everything was stacked against them from the moment that they started this fight, and they started this fight on the back of them feeling that they were being lied to. Eventually, they were proved right, and I do admire them. I mean, I've met a lot of the families over the years, and we're still in touch with some of them. But I find it amazing that when they're interviewed, that they're not more bitter than what they are, because how do you ever forgive and forget? So, yet again, well done to all those people who found the courage and the time to fight the government, because that's basically what they've done. Is that they've gone right to the top and they fought the government.
Yeah, then that in and of itself, tremendous achievement. And like I say, hopefully it takes those final steps now and it gets enacted into law properly. We have so much to get through in terms of football. We should look back on the most recent game, which is obviously Burnley. And interesting, really, I guess, to think about this one. I'm not sure what you made of it. But again, maybe if we could just have a quick look at this, because it was something I wanted to get out of the way from the start, which was, can we try to be honest about what happened here? Because there were some people from the TV channels who were covering it on the day, to the various media outlets that evening, to the headlines the next day. And the general tone of this, Jan, was plucky and unlucky Burnley. They didn't deserve what they got, you see. And I've got the stats up there in front of us now. We can see them. 27 shots to 3. Our 4 only on target. 81% of the ball to the Reds for 692 passes to 166. And, 13 corners to 1. This narrative that went around, man, I can't get my head around it, really, that Burnley were unlucky. It was being proliferated by the likes of Jamie Carragher and Sky and Michael Richards and lads like that. And then it just kind of took hold. I didn't see anything like that. I mean, did they have a right to play defensive football? Bloody sure they do. They got tanked 9-0 the last time we played a Scott Parker team. So do you if you're Burnley. But this narrative of they were lucky and we are poor, we played within ourselves, but the fact that Burnley didn't win doesn't mean they deserve to. What was your take on that kind of slant on it?
Well, my first take on it, I mean, I wasn't at the game and I watched little bits while I was at the Etihad getting ready for the Manchester City derby. I never felt that Burnley were unlucky. They were hanging on for grim life from early on, really. And you just sense, don't you? We were actually just coming off the pitch at the end. I wasn't warming up, just about to play again, so I've left those days well behind me. But we were just coming off, going through the concourse, and I looked up at the screen, and there was 3 minutes to go, and you've always got all the City fans watching the game, haven't you? And then the next thing, you get the penalty, and you just know it's going to be, isn't it? And it was quite remarkable for them to take such an interest. They almost showed emotions, the Manchester City fans, when if they were interested, in this game of football. But obviously, you hear all the normal things, don't you? Oh, typical Scousers, lucky Scousers, and whatever. And I thought, well, it's probably the only thing we haven't been today. Listen, I fully understand if you're a fan of another club hoping to be part of the top 4 or the title chance or whatever, and you look at Liverpool and gone, Liverpool, well, I fully understand if you would come to that conclusion, being an Arsenal fan or a City fan. And I don't quite know what to make of each other. I fully understand what the game's about. The game's about winning. I also know what it's like to be part of a team. When we talk about the team, we talk about the manager, backroom staff, and the players and whatever. And all we are concerned about at the end is winning, isn't it? And supporters sometimes struggle with this view that, but more often than not, when we finish playing a game, that game is over. Fans sometimes can mug around for days and be disappointed and whatever. That's not the same for players. So by the time we'd left Burnley on Sunday, all the players are interested in is the fact that we played for, we got 12 points, and now we're moving on to the next one. And let's go to it first, and then Everton. That's all they'll be concerned about. How they played and how they won the game will not, Trevor, and me, will not enter into their minds again. I've got to be careful what you say it, but I think I'm lucky and blessed in that I remember a lot of games. I remember every game I played in. So I also remember the ones we stole. When you win late on whatever, but I can guarantee most of my teammates don't. You have no idea. So what I'm saying is that you don't see or feel the same as your own fans or the away teams you're playing against. You have a totally different conception of this. What's the problem here now? We went to Burnley, we won 1-0. Was it in the 95th minute? Okay, yeah, well, it still counts, doesn't it? We get the 3 points, and we now have 2 clean sheets as well, which I think is a real bonus. And so, but in terms of, yes, I can see we can play better, and yes, I can see that. Well, I don't know whether I buy into that narrative that when we play against a team who defend like Burnley, that we struggle. Well, we'll soon find out, won't we? Because we've got 2 coming this week who more or less play like that in Atletico Madrid and Everton, who will park. Everton's bus will be as big as Burnley's the one they parked up. I'm not quite. I think it's an easy narrative, isn't it, to go, Liverpool struggle when they play against teams who sit deep. I don't know. There was a lot of shots. There was not a lot of shots on target, and there's still some of our attacking players who we know are better than what they're showing at the moment. Ekiteke had his most difficult game because there's nowhere for him to go. Mo Salah still looks a little bit isolated. Florian Wirtz is still a bit, and Cody Gakpo, I think, in these games maybe looks a little bit like a one-trick pony, doesn't he? You know what I mean? Drops his shoulder and comes inside. So I fully trust Arne Slot and his ability to get the most out of this squad, and I also fully trust the players and their ability to make sure that we improve. You know, I mean, I spoke to a lot of Liverpool fans before the season of a certain generation, and they were all praying for 87, 88 all over again. You know, loads of new players in, bang, you know, we're going to entertain everybody. It hasn't quite been like that yet, has it? But it has been a perfect start.
Yeah, hasn't been quite like that is the way to look at it. Can't argue with those points in the board. The thing about it is, and I don't want to repeat material, last week we spoke a lot about the defence. We might focus on one chap today, just briefly, again. But it's more in the other areas of the field I'm kind of curious to talk to you about today, because again, this is kind of repeating a point, but it does feel, you can really feel the teething troubles. You can feel the to me, it's really obvious that it's a team trying to force a new way of playing onto itself. And so we don't have those patterns that we were used to from last season or from previous iterations of Liverpool. And specifically, I think it's obvious on that left-hand side where, like you say, you've got Cody who can do the cut-in and the back post dink, or cut in and shot, or cut in and drift across the box and hope to cause chaos there. That's it. If Kirkes offers an overlap, he doesn't get picked out. If Florian Wirtz darts into a little corridor, he doesn't get picked out. So that's an issue. And then we didn't seem to have a whole lot of Mo Salah on the ball in the first half. That changed a bit in the second half. But I feel that, Jan, that it changed because we had two more traditional fullback type presences on the field in Robbo and Bradley in that second half. And there was a little bit more dynamism to the way that we played. Now, I don't think that we can say that that's down to Kirkes or necessarily the personnel, but more whatever it is that Arne is trying to do with this shape. And I just felt, again, especially in the first half, like the first half of the previous matches, we're looking at Florian Wirtz with maybe 2 people around him getting the ball. What's he going to do there that's different? How can he influence the ball on the half turn? How can he get forward? Because we have these banks of players ahead of us. It just doesn't seem like it has gelled yet, whatever it is. Is there anything that you can see that's clearly being attempted and maybe being thwarted? Do you have any ideas about that left-hand side and how we could possibly better utilise the players that we have available to us to get them involved more?
I mean, obviously a lot of questioning one there, Trevor. I think if we start by dealing with the starting 11, we last week we spoke about Szoboszlai, and I felt he'd play midfield because I felt he would be a waste against Burnley, because how Burnley played surely is not a surprise to anyone. And I felt that Szoboszlai would be better used in the middle instead of McAllister because of his travelling, because he doesn't feel 100% right, and also because Conor Bradley is more of a right back. So when we also last week spoke about what we want to do or what we want to achieve with our fullbacks. Prior to Arne Slot arriving, we knew 100% how our fullbacks play. And that was Roman when they were flying down the wings, putting in crosses, and they have all these assists between them, Trent and Robbo. Then Arne came, and we changed the role of both fullbacks. We didn't need them to be overlapping, coming on the outside and getting to the byline anymore. If anything, Trent had a tendency to more step inside and play in midfield. So now we're looking at a new set of fullbacks. Who's going to be on the right when we finish off, I don't know, but Kirby's on the left. And I don't quite know what the plan is. What I do, however, think is that there is some pressure this season because there's some expectations of how we should look. So last year, when Arne came in and we left the club era, people were unsure. But obviously what we achieved was number. But now there's pressure on how we should look, isn't it? You know, everybody now have an idea about how Liverpool should look, and everybody talks about the front four, how they should look, and the front four is the problem because we don't have a way of getting the best out of Mo and getting the best out of Florian at the moment, and I do think that them two are the key because they're the ones, apart from the goals that they'll score. Mo with all his assists last year, and I don't need to tell anyone on Florian Gates is also somebody who creates a lot of other chances in it. It's the emphasis is not so much on Gakpo and Eki Teki or when it becomes Alexander Isak. So I think he's battling with how to play. And then there's other thing, and that might not be as popular with some people, but that is the passing ability of Trent as a right back, whether that's down the line or whether that's inside. You know, you talk about Florian Wirtz darted into a corridor and he doesn't get it. Well, that's kind of what Trent did, isn't it? And that was kind of my big argument when Xabi Alonso left Liverpool. And people said, yeah, but I said, no, watch how he moves the play from his own half into the opposition half at the right time with the right pass. So, whereas we feel that in the long run will improve, you called the teething problems before. But I think you're spot on, Trevor. I think we've probably got bigger teething problems than what we thought we would have. Because naively, probably, we thought that Florian Wirtz is just going to step from the Bundesliga into the Premier League and go, here we are. You know, he's going to dance around like a ballerina and do what we did in Germany. It just doesn't quite work like that. Plus also the opposition also have an expectation of how Liverpool would play this year. I think a lot of times last year, the opposition found it difficult to cope with the way that we played. Arne Slot was quite flexible, maybe not in selection of individual players, but in terms of how we played. Sometimes we played 4-4-2, play over the press and whatever. But this kind of season, I think all the opposition we played so far kind of know what we're going to do. They know the avenues that we're going to go through. They know we're going to be looking for Florian Wirtz. They know we're going to be looking for Mo Salah. Because let's not forget Mo Salah, sort of new role that he had last year, where he defends less and becomes much more of a playmaker on the right. Also, the opposition now knows that. So there is a lot of things we need to work on. That ability to want to run forward, to run into the space. And again, I come back to Luis Diaz, and I wasn't always Luis Diaz's greatest fan, but in terms of energy and being explosive when you need it, also we need that type sometimes. But as I said before, I've got full confidence that we're going to solve this problem, Trevor. And while we haven't seen problems, let's keep winning.
Well, you literally can't beat that for sure. I'm struck by your 87-88 comparison there, and people talking to you about that, because there's a lot of chat about it, and it's an easy one to throw out, and you can understand why people do it. But if anything, that was kind of like, it was almost like Kenny replaced an entire unit. We had a man on the left, we had a man on the right, we had a man up top, and we had a man in behind him. Houghton one side, Barnes the other side. You've got Aldo up top, and you've got Beardsley floating around in behind doing bits. And it was almost like one chunk plug and play thing, and it worked, right? Whereas we're tinkering with different parts of the team here now as well. We have just as much churn. And when Isak comes, it's going to be, wow, look at all these new pieces we have to fit into the puzzle. But it's across a bigger area of the team, and it just feels it's more systems-based again, the game these days too. And it's going to be an interesting thing to see how they adapt to it. I want to talk to you a little bit about Kerkez. He's one of the most interesting ones, and then briefly on Wirtz. But In terms of Kirkes, we saw a moment there in the game at the weekend where he does something incredibly daft. I mean, it had me shouting at the TV because if I was in the ground, it would have been the same. You know, if you're going to, I'm actually a big fan of the dark arts, Jan. I know you're way too noble of a man, and you come from an era of football where fellas would get the clip around the ear for doing that type of thing. But I'm all for winning whatever sneaky way you can win, right? I've got a bit of South American in me or something, or maybe it's just the Irish. But I love it, right? But do it right. Like, sit up at night and watch a few Harry Kane hanging a leg videos and then do it. But that I just thought was an embarrassment. It was shocking. And I loved the frankness with which he got hooked and told on his way off the field, I don't trust you not to get another yellow card. That's why you're off, lad. I thought that was really good management. It's nice to see.
So, I was watching a little bit of the game at that time, and you kind of, that's your first thought, isn't it? You know, what does Arne Slot do now? Because then he had the foul just inside his own half, where he was sort of last man and everybody was shouting for the second yellow card, weren't they? Which of course he wasn't. And then you kind of think, well, sensible thing now is to take him off in it, which is a big call in it, trouble. You know, to replace your left back inside 40 minutes, especially when he's a new signing, was a big call in it. But I also think that Arne Slot have obviously seen something in Kirkes. Don't forget, he also sees him every day. And he's seen something in him where I think we generally have, and I think for a long time, we've had an unbelievably trustworthy squad. We don't get involved in any unnecessarily shenanigans. You know, we don't get it. Hardly any stupid yellow cards, hardly any stupid red cards. We don't get involved. And I think Arne Slot would have looked at Kirkes and gone, okay, this boy has got a little bit of aggression in him that we need to control. And I think taking him off on Sunday has actually helped him. It's helped him to avoid a second yellow and getting sent off, but I also think it's helping for the future, where you think, you know, we need to think about these situations. Let's not get ourselves into these awkward situations.
The second 87-88 comparison I wanted to make briefly was Florian Wirtz / Peter Beardsley. And I don't know, I haven't heard anyone say this, but you and I have spoken about Beardsley before, and I know that when he arrived at the club, I know, like, you know, different people are big personalities. Peter wasn't that kind of a guy. I know yourself and Ian Rush made an effort with him and were kind of tighter with him maybe than others. But that was a tough period for him, wasn't it, when he arrived at the club first? It wasn't just that straight, instant fix where he was the big money signing and it was an immediate success. I think people have forgotten that it was a slow build for him. And that's why I'm kind of just, you know, you can see where I'm going with the Wirtz thing, because he's copping a lot of flack, and I don't think it's necessarily fair. And all his stats are right up there in terms of forward passes and all these kind of things. But it's none of the good stuff that we really want to see, like assists and goals. So it is an interesting comparison to make, isn't it, between him and Beardsley back in 87?
I remember as clear as the day, Trevor. Peter was the big signing, and Peter was that's where the expectations were. You know, the other three, all right, John had been there for a while already, and Ray came a little bit later. Well, John was, okay, but Peter Beardsley was the big signing, also because Peter was brought in to replace Kenny. So Peter, that's where the expectations were. And Peter, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling this, but Peter tells about the first couple of months, Alan Hansen, after games. And he was a bit tongue-in-cheek because the season couldn't have gone any better, you know, and we went 29 games unbeaten. So it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, isn't it? But Alan Hansen, after the game, used to say, you don't get a lot for 1.9 million these days. And he really, really used to wind Peter up, you know, but he also, in a funny kind of way, motivated him, you know, because he was desperate. You know, had one of the other players said that, he might not have meant the same, you know. But you sort of, when I walked into the Liverpool dressing room, there was sort of three players who wanted to impress. That was Phil Neal, Alan Hansen, and Kenny Dalglish. You know, and by the time Peter Beardsley got there was only really Jockey left. Kenny was the manager and Phil had gone. So I'm thinking, he's looking around the dressing room and he's thinking, well, the one guy here to impress is Alan Hansen, isn't it? You know, and Alan, after every game for about 3 or 4 months, yeah, you don't get a lot for 1.9 million these days. And I could see Peter going, you know, but he got it in the end, didn't he, Peter? There's no doubt about that. Oh, often one of those players, I think we said this before, massively overlooked when we talk about great Liverpool players.
You wonder, don't you, who might be the equivalent to Jockey Hansen? Is
Do
it
you know
is it
what?
actually is
Do
it
you know
Robbo?
what? Do you know what, Trevor?
Go
I
on.
was saying that to one of the lads last week. I said,
Oh yeah,
I just wonder whether that still goes on. Whether
yeah.
somebody actually goes, well, bloody hell, but maybe one day somebody will go out and said, yeah, we gave him a living a stick, and but it's like, see, if something like would have happened in the Manchester United dressing room now, I think it'd create a problem because they're not doing well, are they? But when you're doing well, Trevor, you can kind of push your luck a little bit. You can be a little bit cheeky. You can ask people for a little bit more, can't you? Or you can let people know that, hey, listen, come on, you're not quite there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm very sure it does go on, man. I mean, like, I think there's a wee bit too much talk about how these players are so delicate and it's all the woke 2025 stuff and they're all sort of going around their bubble and no one offends anyone. I don't think it's like that with groups of young men. I mean, I work in a secondary school. I teach young men every day. They haven't changed. They haven't changed. The same things keep getting said. There's the same kind of level of banter and ribbing, and between me and my pals, nothing has ever changed. The first thing we do is take the piss out of each other. So I'd be amazed if that doesn't happen. So I'm fascinated to know who might be the jockey equivalent. On the Burnley game, as a last word, you spoke last week on the show about the difference between managing well, proficiently, excellently, in fact, in the Championship, and then having to do it in the Premier League. And I was mentioning to you in the setup for the last question and the one before that, Scott Parker has a traumatic memory of a big, heavy loss against Liverpool. And so if he wants to set up defensively, go at it, have at it. Do you think they have enough, though, from what you saw? Because I thought, they're at home. Their home fans were cheering anything across the halfway line. Any ball over the top that was chased got massive cheers. The Sky commentators thought it was the best thing they'd ever seen. But there was nothing there for me in terms of a threat that they carried. I think they're going to really struggle. If that's the best they can do when they're all backs to the wall, a line of 5 and a line of 4, and just sit in, I think they're going to really struggle. Yeah, now maybe I'm not seeing something. What do you think? What do you think about Parker's chances again this lot to hang around?
Well, I think last week it was 10 wins in 55. Now it's 10 wins in 56 in the Premier League for Scott Parker. And Scott Parker generally plays not to lose. I fully understand that is the way you want to play when you play against Liverpool, isn't it? But I still think that, you have a responsibility. And I think you have a responsibility towards your own players as well. Don't tell me for 1 minute, Trevor, that the players enjoyed that. They might have enjoyed that they walked off the pitch with a point in it, but don't think for 1 minute they enjoyed, during the game having to run and close down and defend the 18-yard line non-stop and not having any freedom to play. Because, even if you play for Burnley, you can still play, can't you? You're still playing in the Premier League, and I think they, I want to show a little bit what I've got, instead of just running around and do all these things. And so, yeah, goals is going to be the big thing for me, Trevor. I don't know how they're going to get enough goals to stay up. I think they'll probably do better than probably all 3 newly promoted teams last season. They might get more points than them because I think they might just pick up a few at home. I think they'll be quite strong at home. Burnley, it'll be quite a few 1-0 wins or whatever, isn't it? But in terms of staying up, if we're looking at 32 points, that's kind of where I'm thinking we're heading. Yeah, 32 points. They ain't getting 32 points.
I think that's fair. I mean, stand to be corrected, but I think that's very fair.